Hi, how's it going? Welcome to my first Houdini tutorial. So, a couple days ago I made this piece and I decided to do a tutorial on it. And we're going to take a look at how to do the actual simulation, how to design these strands, how to do the displacement, how to design the background, and yeah, everything else. I'm also going to talk about the rendering, but I think I'm going to do that in a separate video and do that as a part 2 to this tutorial. Alright, so let's take a look at our image first. We have our core here, and you can see that we have some displacement on it. We have our strands, and there are very tiny hairs on it, which I think adds to the value of this render. And yeah, we have these holes here, which we're going to talk about later. And then there's the background and everything else. All right, let's take a look at the setup. Now this is my setup. I'm going to do everything from scratch. I just wanted to show you how I did this here first. We basically have our object, we have our tiny hairs, and obviously, as you can see, these are not geometry, these are just lines. So it makes it actually much faster. And there's polygons, so that's great. This is our geometry. Obviously we have our core, and then we have our pop simulation. Alright, I'm just going to put this on the side and start from scratch. So first of all, I'm going to put down a sphere here. As you can see, my sphere from default is set to the type polygon. Probably when you open it, it's gonna be set to primitive. You can just change it to polygon here. You can play with the frequency. I'm gonna set this to, yeah, maybe like 10. And I'm gonna scatter some points on it. Now, we don't need 1,000 points. We can just use 10. Yeah, 10 seems like a good number to me. And after that, well, we can put down normals here before scatter as well and set this to points. Maybe we want to use the normals for creating the speed, the velocity for these points. Maybe not, I don't know. We can just take a look at it later. And I'm going to put down a pop net. Great, let's dive in. And when we play it, nothing's going to happen. We don't have any forces here. We don't have anything, so let's just turn off this guide here, and I'm gonna use all points. Okay, now I mean, we can put down a point attracting here to see them moving. As you can see, we're making a lot of points, and we don't want that. We just want to create points on the first frame, and then we're going to manipulate those points. So I'm just going to come here, I'm going to go to the breath tab, and I'm going to type a very simple expression, $ff equals to 1. And it's just going to create, well, basically the thing that's happening here is that we have particles on our first frame, and as I go forward, we can see that the impulse activation goes to 0, and we're not going to have any more points. Great. Second, I'm going to come to the force tab on my pop attract node here, and I'm going to change this to -1. So instead of attracting them, we're going to push them away. Alright, cool. Now, between those, first of all, I'm going to come here and create a pop group. Oh, and before I forget, we need to come to the stream tab and give this stream a name. I'm gonna call it growth. Yeah, growth seems like a good name to me. So I'm gonna create a pop group. I'm gonna name it branch group, and I'm gonna activate the expression. I'm gonna say assign frame modulo. Let's, for the time being, let's just say 24 equals to 1. Now, what does this simple expression here mean? It means that as we're going through time, whenever you divide this number to 24, if it equals to 1, put it in this group. Now, basically, when you are at frame 24 and divided by 24, it's gonna be 0. When you are at 25, it's gonna be 1. 26, it's gonna be 2, and so on. Now, I can just change it to 0 actually, because I don't want to have have a group on my first frame. But if you do want to create it in a way that you have your split effect from the very first frame, you can just put 1 here, or you can just put down another number. Like if you don't want it to be so fast, if you don't want to have that effect at frame 24, you can just change this to 48, and I don't know, maybe you can just change this to 36. So when you get to the 36 frame, you're gonna have 1 point, and as you go forward, it's gonna change again. For my simulation, I'm just gonna change it to 24 for now. We are going to come back here and we're going to change it later. All right, so we have our group. I'm gonna put down a pop replicate. What this node does is it's gonna replicate our points, but we don't want this much. We want way less. First of all, I'm gonna activate the group, and I'm gonna come here. We have our branch group, and I'm just gonna type branch group in here. Now, second, I'm just gonna turn these to 0, and I'm gonna say create 2 particles. Yeah, 2 sounds good. I'm just gonna put down a merge node in here, and I'm gonna merge my 2 streams. Okay, now I'm just gonna come here and we set this thing to be on the growth stream, and I'm gonna come to the stream and type growth here as well. Now I'm not done. When I play this, you can see it's gonna look weird. It's gonna be jagged. It's gonna be very weird. I mean, we are getting something, obviously, but it doesn't look good. So what can I do here? We're gonna come to the shape tab and change this from sphere to point. It's gonna be better, but now you can see the problem. We are creating the points, but the problem is we're creating them on top of each other. So if I come here and turn on the point number, you can see there are multiple points here, and we're just creating everything on top of each other. Why is that? It's because we don't have anything to that these points know that they should be a little different. Okay, so I'm just gonna go down to attributes. I'm gonna say add to inherited velocity, and I'm gonna take a look here. So when I make it right now, you can see it's gonna get very aggressive, and they're moving away. That looks cool, but 1 is too big for me. I'm just gonna change it to 0.01. So now I am creating those, but they are still staying relatively close to each other, as you can see. All right. Now, it's a little hard to follow them like this, so I'm just going to come out and I'm going to put down a trail solve. Now, I'm going to come here, I'm going to say connect as polygons, and I'm going to type $FF in here, and I'm going to change it to turn off the close rows. So we are trailing them now. And if you look at this, it's still not very exciting. Why is that? Well, we don't have any variance here. One way to change that is, again, you can just leave it at 1 and take a look here. And before doing that, let me just come here and I'm gonna pin this view, so when I dive inside, I'm gonna see the trail. Now, it does look interesting. It looks more interesting, but first of all, you are getting these, and obviously you are gonna get those these discounted these spaces here, but it's fine, especially since we are going to add geometry to it and they're not going to be simple lines. But again, this is too boring for me. Ooh, and it gets super heavy, so make sure you're not going through the whole timeline. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm just gonna again turn this to 0.01, and I'm gonna put down a upwind. This is gonna help our simulation a lot. I'm gonna put down a value like 0.5 in here, and I'm gonna run it. And as you can see, it is getting better. It's still not perfect, and it's still looking a little weird here. So maybe 0.01 is actually too low. Let's just go with 0.1. Again, not very good, so let's increase the amplitude to like 3. Let's take a look. Oh, 3 is too much. Let's go 1. Oh yeah, now we're doing it. Alright, cool. As you can see, we have a lot of cool shapes going on in here. They look awesome. I love it. Now, we have a problem here, and it's the fact that, okay, if you look closely in here, we're splitting it into 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if we go up, again in here we're splitting it. And if we go up, again we're here splitting it. And we're always having a unanimous number here, you know? And it gets boring, because we want to have some randomness. So what I'm gonna do here is, first of all, I'm gonna come to this tab, to my pop group, and maybe change this to 48, because 24 was, as we go forward, you can see it got a little heavy when it was 24. Right now it actually seems like a better number. Now, secondly, I'm gonna come to my pop replicate. I'm gonna go to my breath tab, and instead of having this constant 2 in here, I'm gonna change it. And I'm gonna change that with a simple expression. So I'm gonna create a random number. Now, when I'm creating a random number, I need a seed. I'm gonna use my frame for it, but then again, I'm gonna end up with the same number for each point. So I'm just gonna add a point number here as well, and maybe just a random seed. And this number is gonna be between 0 and 1. And well, don't really need that, because between 0 and 1, it's gonna be, again, very boring. It's gonna look bad. And we are having between 0 and 1, it's gonna result in terrible numbers. I don't like that. I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna put down a fit 01 in here, and I'm gonna remap this number. So what do I want here? Let's see, maybe between 0 and 5 would be a good number. So let's just fit it between 0 and 5. And just in case, I'm just gonna put down a floor number, which is gonna result in a integer. Yeah, this looks much more interesting to me now. We can play with the seed. We can just come here, increase this number. Maybe instead of 5, we can go to 6 or 7. Let's go with 7. Yeah, this looks interesting. I like it. I like it way more. You can obviously put down like 1 in here, and every branch is going to result in something, and yeah, this might actually be more interesting. So we have our we're done. We have our strands. Well, not quite done, because right now we can put down, and let me just save this. We can put down a polywire. It's gonna be heavy. It's a lot of geometry, and normals are not correct, so I'm just gonna add normals in here as well. And maybe just change the divisions to 12. 12 is a lot actually. Should have left it at 8. Okay, let's just change it to 8. 8 is better. Okay. And first of all, it's not very exciting, because we have the same thickness going on from beginning to end, and it's also quite heavy. We have 2 million points in here, or 9 million vertices to 2 million polygons. It's a lot. We need to tone this down, and obviously working with just a simple strand is better. So we can just do this in Redshift when we're rendering it. And obviously we're going to take a look at the rendering in a better video. I'm just going to explain everything there. But right now, let's just take a look at what we have here. So, what can be helpful to me here? Let me just add a camera. I forgot to turn on the lock. Let's just look at here. Also, I kind of prefer having multiple objects here, and I'm not that you should, because we need to separate this. So I'm just gonna put down a null in here. I'm gonna call it out strands, and I'm gonna copy this null and connect it to my sphere. I'm gonna call it out core. We're going to revisit this core here. I'm just gonna do it like this. I'm gonna copy this null. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go to this other geometry, and I'm gonna put down the object mesh. And I'm just gonna paste it in here. So now we have everything. I'm gonna rename this to Strands. I'm gonna call this Geo, and I'm gonna lose my cache since I renamed it, and yeah, we're good again. Great. Let me put down a light dome. I'm gonna use some HDRI that I have from Grayscale Gorilla. You can just use any HDRI that you like. And I'm gonna hit render. Now let's take a look here. So we can't see our strands here. The reason why we can't see them is because I forgot to turn on the strands here. I'm just gonna stop the rendering. I'm gonna turn it on. I'm gonna change it to capsule, and I don't need so much tessellation. I'm getting enough points, so I'm just gonna turn it to 0. And let's just hit render, and we have this thing. It is exciting, but it's very different than what we have in here. If you look closely, we can see that we have a lot of thickness here when we start, and as we go forward, it's going to get much smaller. Now, how can we do that? First of all, we can use a cone in here, but it's not going to be as good. And obviously, our scale isn't also really great here. Let me just turn it to like 0. And yeah, this is better than just go with 5. Okay, so this is basically the thickness that I want, but if you look closely, it just looks so bad. And if I change it to cone, it is gonna get smaller, but I want more control here. And also, if you look at this part, you can see that we don't have consistency here. It looks bad. Also, let me just turn on my noiser, and I'm also going to go to my output. I'm going to go to my Redshift prop node, and I'm going to go Redshift system, and I'm going to turn on these two. If you have a RTX graphics card, it's gonna help you. And enable automatic sampling, which helps with the render. Alright, then just hit render again. And yeah, this looks terrible. It looks awful. We don't want this. We want this to be consistent. So how can I do that? If you look closely at our render, you can see that it has a very natural shaping here. So, how do we do this? It's pretty simple, actually. I'm just gonna stop. Oh, I'm just gonna stop this, and I'm gonna dive back into my geo. Alright, I need some stuff in between. So, first of all, let me just put this down. I'm gonna rename this to thickness viz, as in thickness visualization. And I'm gonna add this color here. Okay. So I need an attribute that starts from the very beginning, and as we progress through this simulation, I need it to become smaller, and I'm gonna use that to drive my thickness. So what can I do? I can just simply create a pop triangle in here, and I can type whatever I want. I'm gonna define a attribute in here and let it just go. And as we're going through these frames, it's gonna get bigger, and I'm gonna remap that attribute later. So let's just take a look at what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna call this attribute growth, and I'm gonna say plus equals to 1. Now, what am I doing here? I'm going to create this attribute growth. It is better to actually put down a attribute triangle in here as well and say if at growth equals to 0, so we know that this attribute is actually initialized before we move on. It's equal to 0, and as we go forward, it's gonna get bigger. How is it gonna get bigger? Each frame, as we simulate this object, it's gonna add this 1 to this number. Now, what does this syntax here mean? Basically means f at growth is equal to f at growth plus 1. All right. So let's just come out. I'm gonna come here. I'm gonna hit Control and middle mouse button. I'm gonna hit growth, and now I'm visualizing this growth. Let's take a look at our trail sub, and as we go forward, you can see we're getting exactly what we wanted. We start from 0, well, basically start from 1, because in the first frame it's going to be equal to, it's going to add the plus 1 to the 0 number. You don't really need to create this attribute triangle here, but I do prefer to initialize it like this, set it to 0. Sometimes you might get weird results if you don't do that. And as you can see, as we go forward, we are adding a number, and yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. But here's the problem. Right now we have this attribute, and if I take a look at my geometry spreadsheet and find growth, where is it? Yeah, so it starts from 1 and it goes to 240, and I can't use this to drive my p-scale, which by the way, the p-scale is going to be the attribute that you define for redshift, and I could use that for visualizing the thickness. If you're going to render it with Mantra or any other render engines, you need to know what attributes those render engines use. Mantra uses thickness, I think. I'm pretty sure Mantra uses thickness. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure. I haven't done much rendering with Mantra lately. Okay, so I'm just going to put down a pop-up, not pop-up, point up. I'm going to put down a point up in here, and I'm going to dive inside. So I'm going to bring my growth attribute. I'm going to remap it, and I'm going to export it as a p-scale attribute. So I need a bind, export, and in between those I'm going to just put down a fit range. Okay, so we're just going to bring our growth attribute, we're going to export it as a p-scale. And what I need to do here is actually promoting this. So I'm going to middle mouse click here, and I'm going to say promote parameter, promote, and promote. Cool. Now, if I do want to have more freedom and artistic freedom in here, I'm just going to put down a ramp parameter in here as well. And I'm going to change it to spline. Alright, I'm going to come up here. I'm going to click middle mouse click on my trail node, and I'm going to go to p-scale. So right now our p scale is equal to 0. The reason why is that we need to bring this up, and it's still equal to 0. Why is that? Basically, as we're creating this growth attribute here, is it? Just come here. Our growth attribute starts from 1. Oh, actually, let me just put down a loading here, because I'm mapping it. Okay. Our growth attribute starts from 1, and as we get to the end, it's gonna, where's my growth? Okay, it's gonna go to 240. Basically, if I just change my timeline to 360, it's gonna go to 360, as you can see, and it's getting very, very crowded in here. So yeah, it's equal to the number of the frames that we have. Now, what can we do with that? We can just come to our point valve, and in our ramp, we can just hit maximum value in, change it to $FF. So now, as we're going forward, this maximum number that we're accepting as our range, as our input range, it's going to be equal to the current frame that we're on. And we're going to remap it. How am I going to remap it? I experimented with the numbers before, and to me the numbers 0.1 and 0.001 were good numbers. So if I go to my P scale now and just go to the beginning, I'm just going to let it run a little bit, and I'm going to come here. Let's see, I'm not getting what I wanted. Why is that? Well, I probably made a mistake in the renaming process. Let me just take a look here. Dive inside. We have P scale. We have growth. This might be a bug. Just one as well. Let me see. We have our growth attribute in here, and my growth attribute seems okay. I'm taking my growth, I'm remapping it. It should be fine. I don't know why I'm not getting the result that I want. It's weird. Why is that? Probably made a mistake here. Give us some time to figure this out. I realize what was wrong. I need to put down my trade note before that. Yeah, okay, it's fixed. So we have our growth effect. It's going to look like this. We are going to trail it first, and after that I am going to go to my point valve. I'm going to change it to P scale. Yeah, that was stupid. Alright. Oh, let's just test it out. I'm just gonna get this thing back out, and I'm gonna hit render view. Let's take a look. And yeah, it looks doesn't look fine, because I forgot to change this to capsule. And yeah, it looks good. The only problem is that it's too thick here, and we're gonna fix that as well. Let's just stand inside and let's play with these numbers. So I want to bring this number to value down, and I think I left this as a big number. Yeah, it's fine. We need to change it to 1. Alright, yeah. This is pretty much what I have in here in my render. As you can see, they look very similar now. Okay, what we need to do here is taking care of these parts. Right now they look a little weird, and the reason is we don't have these holes and it doesn't look natural, just something's coming out of this geometry. So let's fix that. I'm gonna go back to my geo and I'm gonna take a look. So what can we do here? We want to have, let me just make this a little bit, something like this, and we don't need 260 frames, just 230 is more than enough. No, it looks cool, I like it. Okay, so we have these points, okay, and as you can see they are the beginning of these strands, and we can actually bring these points, put down a point, and I'm gonna copy some spheres here. Let's take a look. Our spheres are too big. I'm gonna make them smaller. 0.1, 0.2 seems like a good number, but maybe I can just define a separate p scale in here just to control it. It doesn't really matter. Well, this is fine for now. And I'm also going to bring my sphere. So I'm going to use this sphere. I'm going to basically put down a VDB combine here, and I'm going to do the difference operation. Basically it's a Boolean operation. So I'm going to put down 2 VDB from polygons. I'm just going to wire this is the first one. I'm going to right click and say actions, create a reference copy, which every channel here is going to be controlled by this. So if I change the voxel size in here, it's going to change this one as well. And I'm going to connect this to these ones. Let's take a look. Maybe we can add some frequency here. Yeah, seems better. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is just put down a VDB combine. Right now, and as you can see, the geometry is not very good on my main sphere, so I'm just gonna put down a subdivide. And change it to loop, and there we go, looks better. So I'm gonna combine them. I'm gonna change the operation to SDF difference, and maybe I can put down a shape node here as well in order to have some more control. Okay, this is good, and you can obviously dial this number down and control everything like that. And I'm gonna add another shape node here. I'm gonna go extreme, like this. 10 is too much, obviously. Let's go with 5. As you can see, we are getting those holes in here. I'm gonna play with the numbers a little bit. Maybe change this to 2, maybe to 4, maybe to 10. Yeah, this is good. And then I'm gonna go back to the reshape and change it to like 15. 15 is obviously too much. Let's go with 10 again. And yeah, it's pretty good. Now if you are getting some weird intersections like this one thing that you can do is actually using this geometry here, and we don't have a geometry right now, so let me convert VDB and change it into a polygon. Well, it's too small and we can't just say it's fine, let's just move on. But if you do want to fix this, you can put down a null and call it out core, just copy it, you go inside your popnet, put down a merge here, and you can put down a static object. And it shouldn't be like this. It should be like this. Basically, the order of operation is going to be from left to right, so we're gonna change it to that. Let me take a look at my recording here. And Okay, yeah, everything is good. Let's just go back. And right now, we need to paste this. Cool. And we don't need this right now. We should just use this. And let's play it. As you can see, it's gonna be much slower. So, you know, do that if you really want to avoid collisions. One thing that I think actually helps out a lot is turning this into a code. Okay. Hey. Wow. Change it. Okay. Turning into a collision source. I'm just going to put down another node in here. I'm going to call it out or it's going to look like this. I'm going to my collision source. I'm going to change it to what's the size? 0.05. And I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back into my PubNet. I'm going to go to my static object. I'm going to go to my collisions tab. I'm going to change this tab to volume sample, and I'm going to paste this under my proxy volume. And if I take a look at my collision guide, it's going to be like this. It's going to be much better now. Also, the reason why it's getting so slow is that we need to come to our object merge, and I'm going to hit pop. What it means is that it's not basically whenever it's this star in here, we're gonna actually see everything, and it's gonna be generating this geometry, the static geometry, and since we're trailing it, we're gonna be adding this. Oh, and you can see it's so slow. So I'm just gonna put down a pop in here. What is this pop? It's the name of this object. You can just simply copy pop object, and instead of going with pop and asterisk, we can just put down pop object here. And yeah, let's go to record, and you can see it's actually much faster. Alright, we're still having this issue in here, so maybe this is not enough. Let's change it to 0.1, and it's fixed. Great. Now, we did have something else here, and that's these lines. So let's add those here as well. Displacement. So I'm just going to put down another point cloud. I'm going to dive inside, and maybe my geometry is not dense enough. I need to see the result, and can change it there. We are having a little bit of problem here because it's actually simulating everything, so I'm going to turn it off. We're going to see what's happening outside. I'm going to put down a displacement on normals. I'm going to bring a anti-alias noise, and I'm just going to copy this anti-alias noise and connect the noise to the position and connect the noise to amount. So we're getting something actually really interesting, but the value is way too big, so let's just turn it down to 0.1. Looks much nicer. I'm going to come here, turn down the roughness, and let's just play with the frequency. And as you can see, we are adding these lines, and they're looking quite interesting. I think you can play with the amplitude here. It's gonna be basically amplitude is gonna be like the scale for the displacement. So you can just play with either one of those. You can put some amplitude on the first noise as well. Maybe I brought this number too small. Yeah, this looks like what I had there. You can just tweak it around, you can play with it, see which one you like. I kind of like this look. Let's just go back up. Let's go to core. Let's change it to show all objects. And we're on frame 39. I'm just going to escape a couple times. Go back to the first frame, and I'm going to simulate it again. And yeah, this looks pretty good. This looks great. Awesome. And we're done. this is our object, and I can just come back. I'm gonna hit render, and yeah, this looks great. So we have our object, our main object, and let me go to my redshift. I'm gonna go to my IPR. I'm gonna hit live sublevel. I'm gonna pause it and do it again, and now, yeah, it's live now. Great. Just go to my camera. And we can see this thing grow. Great. So we're basically done here. There are just a couple more finishing touches here and there. So first of all, let me put down the camera to an angle that I like. Also, let's simulate it a little bit more so we have more geometry. And oof, this is a very good angle. I like this. Now let's take a look at this part. Maybe the holes are a little too small, so we can just go there. Let's go to the geo. I'm gonna stop this because it is going to simulate it again. Now, one thing that you can do is actually putting down this pop-up after the simulation. Basically, let it know that it doesn't matter. That's also a good option, but you might get some weird results with the intersection, especially like with this one, because it's so close. So I'm just gonna do it like this. I'm gonna go to my VDB reshape, and I'm gonna make it a little bigger. Let's go to like 15. Yeah, it looks much better now. 15 is too much. Let's go to 13, 14. Let's take a look. Alright, yeah, it looks good. Maybe 15 was actually good enough. Yeah, things look good. This part is gonna be too close to the geometry, and I don't like that, so I'm gonna go to my pop net. I'm gonna go to my pop wind, and I'm gonna change the offset a little bit. And let's take a look. And yeah, we're basically getting what I wanted from the very beginning, and this part is fine. Don't worry about it. So yeah, cool. We have our geometry. Let's just hit render again. This looks good. I love it. Let's just come here. Maybe change it a little bit. Change the angle. And yeah, this is good. I love it. So we're gonna stop the render, and we're gonna go to our objects. So basically, for the background, I just put down a grid. I didn't even bother doing actual good displacements on there, or we're gonna have so much bokeh it doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna connect them, connect the grid to my camera. I'm gonna call it G, and I'm gonna select, hit enter with my object. If you can't see that, you can just hit this number. Why am I not seeing my handles? Oh no, it's weird. Houdini is having some bugs for me right now. I don't know why. I'm just gonna move this thing. Yeah, in this direction, and I'm gonna rotate it. Oh, I get it. The reason why is because I hit this pin here, and I'm not gonna be able to see anything. Okay, yeah, everything is back. Right. And let's just change it something like this. Let's make it 10 times bigger. Let's look at our camera. Fine. Let's take it even further, maybe to 70, 80. Oh, minus 80. Maybe even minus 100. Yeah, this seems like a good number. Let's just keep going. Okay. And obviously, it's our mesh is not. We don't have enough rows and columns, so 100 by 100. I'm just going to put down a mountain here. Make the height bigger. This thing bigger as well. Alligator. No, alligator doesn't look good. Let me just check which noise I used in the actual setup. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. Let's go with Worley. Yeah, this is the noise I use. And maybe we can just change it to 250 to 250. Have more details. I'm just gonna add another mountain here as well. Let's make this 0.1. And we have a lot of geometry. And what you need to do here is just going out and into Redshift tab, saying enable tessellation, and you're done. This is a very good background. You can make it even bigger if you want. Something like this. I think in my setup I had, yeah, I had something like this in my setup. Maybe even 10. Yeah, something like this. Okay, we're done with the background. I'm gonna put down another geometry for our red blood cells. So, red blood cells you can see in my original setup here. I did have these objects. They're super easy to make. I used some VDBs for the scatter so that I don't scatter outside my camera and I don't make it smaller. Basically, if you look at my camera here, everything is aligned. So let's just do that. With my setup. Okay. The blood cells, I'm gonna put down. What am I gonna do here? I'm gonna put down a VDB. Now you might be like, well, why do we need the VDB? And I'm gonna tell you. But before that, let me just create the actual object that we're gonna scatter. Let's take a look. Let me go with 50. Maybe 50 seems good. I'm gonna put down a group tab. I'm gonna change it to points. I'm gonna say middle group. And I'm gonna enable bounding object. I'm gonna go to sphere. I'm gonna make it bigger. And like this. Maybe a little smaller. Something like that. Yeah, sounds good. And obviously we have both sides. So I'm going to put down a soft transform. I'm going to enable the middle group and I'm going to make it. So as you can see, it doesn't look really good right now, but it's going to look much better. Now, one thing that you can do in here is actually just squishing this from the beginning. So something like this, and yeah, it actually looks much better now. Make it a little bit bigger, and 5. Can even go lower, 0.2, and this looks fine. You can play with the softness. Yeah, this looks good. I'm going to turn it into a different polygon. Looks good. Okay, I'm going to put down a smooth. No, not smooth. VDB. Smooth. SDF. Make sure to use the SDF version. Oh, and we're getting this. So, I think this is too narrow. So let's go with more number. Let's make it a little bigger. Maybe something like this. Bring this up. Radius to 0.5. I don't really like this look right now, so maybe I need to dial this number down a little bit. Also make this 0.3. I like 0.3. It's a better number. Actually, maybe 0.5 would be better. And just make this a little bigger. Okay, yeah, this is definitely much better. And yeah, it looks good. So convert with V and change it to polygon, and we have a very simple red blood cell. You can just keep adding to it, remesh it, maybe even reshaping it will actually help. Oh yeah, I like this. And I can this even further, 0.3. And yeah, we have our shape. This looks really good. I like it. Now, what I want to do here is bring this back on, and the background is too far. It's this 80. Yeah, this is better. I'm gonna go to my red blood cells. I'm gonna put down another sphere. I'm gonna 25, something like this. Oh, actually, let's make it smaller and let's transform. I want to scatter points here, but I don't want to scatter point on the surface. I want to scatter point inside as well. So this is my polygon here. This is my sphere. I'm gonna turn it into a ISO offset, and yeah, this looks good. Maybe add here some stuff and just scatter. All right. So as you can see, we have a lot of points, and when I look in my camera, I'm just seeing those tiny points. I don't need so many points here. So what I'm gonna do, well, first of all, we can do something and to make sure that we're not scattering in here, but basically I can just put down a boolean. I might want to bring this a little closer to here. I can simply add a boolean operation for that, and I can create another sphere. I'm gonna keep this sphere. I'm gonna keep this sphere at the beginning here, and I'm gonna make this 10. And as you can see, I'm just taking these parts out. I'm doing that just to be sure that I'm not scattering anything on top of my geometry. And yeah, this looks good, and I'm scattering on top of it. Now, there is a problem here, and as I mentioned before, we have too many points, and how can I actually change those? Well, before doing that, let's just do a go to points, and this looks terrible. So I'm going to put down attribute randomize. I'm going to randomize my n, which is my basically controls my orientation. It's my normals. They are my point normals. So as I randomize them, you can see each one goes in another direction. They're very tiny, so I have to zoom in. What else can I do here to help the scene? I don't have to see this guy. And I can actually put down another attribute randomize. And I'm gonna. Why am I seeing these? Oh, I have my normals. And I can just put p-scale. Yeah, let's go with p-scale and fit this p-scale between 0.75 and 1.25. So some of them are a little bit bigger than the others, and as you can see here, even though I changed my randomize the normals, they still don't look really random. So I'm gonna come to my n randomizer, and I'm gonna say inside sphere, and as you can see, now it's totally random. Let's take a look. you can just hit render here. Obviously you are scattering way too many points and the scene is 7 million points here. It's too big. So what I'm gonna do is put down a group, directed points. I'm gonna call it scatter group. Deactivate that, activate this, and go to bounding volume. And I'm getting an error. Why am I getting an error? Because I don't have an actual volume here. So let's put down a simple VDB node. I'm gonna come here. I'm gonna say VDB from camera. I'm gonna select my camera, and I need to make this actually way bigger. Let's just go with, yeah, let's go with 100 for the time being. And yeah, no, this is actually pretty good. Might want to go even further just to make sure that you're reaching everything. And this is fine. And as I connect it, it's not gonna work because I don't have these VDBs activated. So I'm gonna put down a VDB activate node in here. I'm gonna go inside. I'm gonna go to voxel, and I'm gonna add. And now I'm getting it. My voxel size needs to be bigger, so let's go with 25 maybe. Let's go with 100. And this doesn't look very good because I need to expand it even further. And yeah, we're selecting everything. This is great. I can keep adding here and make it even bigger. So we're covering everything. And now as I come here and in the group tab, go to my ISO surface and increase this ISO surface, you can see I'm selecting. Basically I'm selecting the outside. So I'm just gonna invert it. And now I have it the inside. Great. So put down blast node, select my scanner group, and set this to delete non-selected, and now I have everything that's inside. Now, the best thing about this setup, and maybe I don't need to bring this too much, let's just tone it down. As you can see, it doesn't really matter. Bringing it up is going to help the selection, but maybe 25 is actually good enough. And right now, as I change my camera, you can see that, can't you? So it's actually a very procedural setup. So if you even change your camera, it's gonna be it's gonna depend on that. Great. And at the end, I'm just gonna put these points and get my setup like that. And you can add even more points here, 2000 maybe. Gonna take a while, and yeah, this looks good. Again, you can work with this. You can dial this radius down, and it's gonna get closer to your virus. Maybe even 10. Okay, this looks very good. Love it. And let's just save it. Let's just hit render. And let's take a look at our setup without any depth of field, any materials, basically naked geometry. This looks cool. I like it. I enjoy it. One thing that I would change is actually adding the bokeh effect, and I'm gonna activate this thing in here. It's lets us select it, and it's going to focus on the point that I'm telling it to. I'm going to change this value to 0.5 maybe. Yeah, 0.5 is too much, so 0.25. And it looks really good now. One thing that you can do, and I would recommend that, is actually, it's gonna change our setup drastically, but we can set it up again. In the focal length on your camera, just change it to 90, so your lens is actually more zoom, and just bring it out. It's gonna compute everything. As you can see, setup is really good for us. It's doing everything as I move my objects, move my camera. And yeah, this is really good. So let's just hit render again. And let's focus here. And yeah, that's it. That's our setup. We can just simply compare them together. Obviously, we don't have the materials assigned right now. I am going to be making a part 2 for this tutorial, and I'm going to explain the material setup. But right now, we're basically done. One thing before I forget is adding these tiny strands, which I actually really love, and it is quite simple. Let me just do it now before I go. Let's put down another geo. I'm going to go to my strands. I'm gonna download here and say out strands. I'm gonna copy this node. I'm gonna go to this new and I'm gonna call it tiny strands. And go inside. I'm gonna put down another object merge. I'm gonna put nothing here. It's very simple what I'm gonna do in here. I'm just gonna create a line. I'm gonna what I'm gonna do first of all, I'm just gonna do a couple of points. If you take a close look in here, you can see that since we already had p-scale and p-scale was actually going down, as you can clearly see in here, our tiny strands are actually getting smaller. One thing that I don't like is the orientation, so I'm going to put down a attribute randomize. I'm going to tell it to randomize the end, and inside a sphere, so we're going to have random stuff. I'm also going to put down a attribute angle. I'm going to type f at p-scale, and I'm going to add a very tiny value. Let's just create a channel for it. Add to p-scale. And I'm gonna create that channel, and you can see I can actually control that. Maybe you also want to attribute actually randomize that as well. So before adding that, you can create a p-scale goes to fit. I actually don't remember the actual values, so let's just do it like this. Maybe, yeah, this is fine, honestly. We don't need to really randomize that. If you do want to randomize this, you can put down an attribute randomize in here, type p-scale, and you can see it's too big, so we can go with add value and go between 0.1 and 0.01. And I think 0.01 is actually too big, so 0.001, and this looks really good. Alright. Now, one thing that I don't like is the fact that I'm scattering on top of everything. So what I'm going to do is actually come here and just copying these nodes. I'm going to copy them. I'm going to go to my tiny strand. I'm going to paste them here. And I'm going to do it like this. So right now, I'm actually just scattering in here as well. But one thing that I can really use, if you look closely, if I control this voxel, when I bring it down, oh, not this one. If I take a look at my Z4, if I turn it down, it's gonna get smaller. So I'm just gonna do it on top of these points in here, because first of all, we have a lot of depth of field, and we're not gonna be able to see above. So why scattering on top of everything? And now we have set up like this. We're not scattering in here or on these parts, and you can see we have some intersection, so maybe changing that geometry here is not the best idea. Let's go to 11 and just play with the seed. You can even add 0.5. It goes even further. And yeah, we have our setup. It's done. We have everything we wanted to. Wait. One last time. I'm just gonna come up here with my tiny strand. I'm gonna enable the as cylinders. I'm gonna set to 0.1, not cylinders, capsules. Let's take a look. I'm gonna save this. If it is too big, I'm gonna have to go down and change the scale. And I do think it's too big right now because it's gonna be as big as our actual strand. And yeah, it's not even visible. In these parts, it's actually visible. So I'm gonna go inside my tiny strands. First of all, I'm gonna make this line 2 units bigger. Yeah, it's a good number now, but I don't like the scale, so I'm just going to delete this. We don't need that. Let's make it smaller. And it's still not good enough, so let's put down a triangle for that. I'm going to say f at this scale equals to multiplication number and equals to 0.5. And they're too tiny now, so let's just add let's move up to 4. And again, still not good enough. So 0.02 maybe. Three. You can also just simply put down a point block and just remap it from there. Doesn't really matter. Our numbers are very slow, very small, so you know, do whatever we want here with the P scale. You can actually something that you can do, and I don't know why I didn't do that from the very beginning. You can just leave it at 0.5 and come out here, go to the strand, and just manipulate it from here. 0.2. It's gonna be tiny, and it's gonna be fine. Let's just render this region just to make sure it's fine. And yeah, it looks fine. It looks good. These are our strands. Let's maybe increase the to HD 1080. Let's just do it from here. And I should not run this because actually the size is okay. Cool. Yeah, this is a good number. Right. We have everything that we wanted to do. Now in our next tutorial, I'm going to go through the rendering process, and it's going to be awesome. I really do love rendering. We're also going to handle these parts because I don't like them. Maybe we can actually have other values here and control it like that. You might even want to go to your tiny strands, make them bigger, maybe 5. Maybe make more of them because right now we're scattering. I actually forgot to put down a scatter node here. Yeah, that's why it looks a little weird. So let's put down a scatter. Let's just stop this. I'll put the scatter node in here. And we can actually scatter after that. So basically have this geometry, and then we're gonna scatter on top of it, and let's just go to the high number, 10,000. Great. Let's take a look now. It's gonna look much better now. Yeah, it's good. We're getting what we wanted. actually seeing the actual strands. Oh, yeah. I realized what I did. I shouldn't have done it after it. We can either put the scatter node before and just do this whole operation, or you can just put it down and move everything to be down there. I'm just gonna change this to 30,000. And now let's take a look, and it's gonna be fine. Yeah, we're getting the strands in here. It still needs time to render everything, so let's just do a small region. And as you can see, we're getting our strands. Maybe the number is not actually big enough, so let's go with 85,000 points. And yeah, we're getting there. We have a lot of strands. It looks fine, it looks good. I can just set this thing to render here, and we can take a look. Alright, awesome. So we don't have any materials in here, that's why it looks weird. We can just simply add some materials, some redshift materials. We have our strands in here. You might want to make them even smaller, because right now I think they might be a little too big. And yeah, in our next video we're going to render this. Okay, so thank you for joining me. We're going to stop it here. Please do check out my website. I will provide the HIP file there. You can just download that and follow along. And after that, in the next part, we are going to render this. Thank you, and goodbye.